to give a few more seconds for people to join in, but thank you all for joining us today. I'm interested in learning more about what, the years and majors we have in the audience, so feel free to type it in the chat box as we get ready. Okay, we see MBA, business. Cool. But yeah, hi. So good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us here at the WolfieTank Inspirational Stories panel. We have esteemed alumni here with us tonight from business, engineering, and SOMAS who have gone above and beyond in their careers. And we hope that this event will inspire the audience tonight to follow their aspirations and make their career journeys a reality. I just want to thank and acknowledge the College of Business, the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences, the Alumni Association, and iCreate for this event. So I'd also like to ask the panelists to first introduce themselves. We can start with Gavin Stewart and then move on to Amber Britton, Daniel Kivatinos, and Laura Clary.
Okay, so I am the co-founder of Virtual Water Cooler, which is a virtual events and team building company. I majored in electrical engineering at Stony Brook way back when. And so the first part of my career, I would say in terms of things that have been passionate for me, both academically as well as career-wise, I really am very interested in entrepreneurship. So basically creating something from nothing. So that was the first part of my career. And then the latter part of my career, I've also spent time helping companies get financed.
Okay, thank you so much. Amber?
Hey, I'm Amber Britton. I went to Stony Brook later in life, but I got my undergrad and MBA at Stony Brook. So my undergrad is also in business. I am a senior product manager now. I work for a cybersecurity startup called Security Scorecard. Product is kind of where I found my niche after I got my MBA. It's all about solving problems that impact the business, but that also improve users' experience in a product, and kind of combines all of my skills. And before I was in product, I had a long history in email marketing. Very excited to be here on this panel of very accomplished alumni.
All right, thank you, Amber. Next up, can we get Daniel?
Hi, everybody. I'm Daniel Kivatinos. I am one of the co-founders of a company called Dr. Chrono and the former chief operating officer of the company. I went to Stony Brook, learned a ton there. And yeah, I recently, there's a lot of impact in the company that I created. So from working with companies like Apple, awesome company, to going to the White House. So it's a lot of fun doing that. But yeah, that background is did computer science at Stony Brook and psychology.
Okay, thank you. Laura?
Hi, my name is Laura Clary. I'm the founder, owner, and operator of Blossom Meadow Farm. We raise and sell native bees, so mason bees, as well as grow organic blueberries, strawberries, and raspberries to make award-winning jam. I studied marine science and received my master's in marine science at Stony Brook. And what I really took away from the whole college experience and grad school experience was that it taught me how to think critically and how to read science and then turn it into real on-the-ground results. And I am passionate about the natural world because really that's the only thing that matters. Without clean water and clean air, we have nothing. So it's good focus.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for your introductions. I'm really interested in getting to know you more about your careers and how you got there tonight. So next, I also want to introduce Dave Ecker and Arlene Alvarez for making tonight's event possible. Dave is the director of iCreate, and he's also a Stony Brook alum. He's been involved in multiple startups and is also passionate about helping students with their entrepreneurial pursuits. And he's here today helping us out with the technical stuff. So hi, Dave. Next, I'd like to also introduce my good friend Arlene, who is an undergraduate senior majoring in business management and psychology with a specialization in marketing. She's the lead of outreach and Communications of iCreate, and she was the Master of Ceremonies for WolfieTank of 2021. I'd like to also just quickly introduce myself as well. My name is Vivian Su, and I'm an undergraduate senior majoring in engineering sciences with a specialization in biotech and a minor in nanotechnology. I've been working with iCreate for about 5 years now, and I'm really honored to be the host for tonight. So for today's event, I'll be asking each of the panelists a question. And panelists, if you would like to add on something after someone else has answered, please feel free to do so. So the first questions for everyone. One of tonight's themes is inspirational stories on how you've been successful in your field. What is one experience that you've had that would inspire the audience today? And we can just start off with Daniel. So whenever you're ready, feel free.
Sure. So, sorry, the question is, what is an inspiration or my story?
Yep, just any inspirational story from your life that would help inspire the audience today.
Yeah. So I'll focus a little bit on Stony Brook and what I really appreciated about going to Stony Brook. I think one of the opportunities going to the school that you all have is really the network of people and the people that you are surrounding yourself with at the school. When I went to Stony Brook, I did computer science and met a lot of people in computer science, and did psychology and met a lot of people in psychology. And I lived on campus, and I think bonding with all of the amazing people that I had that experience with allowed me to go out into the industry and understand the world in a really good way. And a few of my friends that I went to school with actually started their companies. One of them started a really amazing e-commerce site. Another one went on to go start a healthcare company. And I went on to go start my healthcare company. And it really started with me finding the network at Stony Brook to connect with to start my company. And this is a few years after I graduated. And why did I start a company? I really felt like listening to yourself and understanding what your needs are as a person and what you want to do in the world and make the biggest impact sometimes means going your own path and not joining another group. And I think in my experience, when I met with my co-founder, we went to Stony Brook together and we started talking about healthcare and how do we, make an impact in healthcare through technology. And it really allowed me to, the network really allowed me to have the team and the tools to really get my company started. And, when you start something, it's really scary. But I think a lot of the experiences from Stony Brook in particular, a lot of it was not quite learning the math or learning the history. It was learning the learning and learning how to learn. So actually taking a lot of the challenges in real industry and saying, how did all that learning that I learned in these math problems and all of this, psychology problems and all this other the history classes I took and whatnot, learning to learn on the job is probably one of the best skill sets. So I felt like having my co-founder and they went to Stony Brook, and having myself and having that school that skill of learning how to learn quickly on a job allowed me to build the company very quickly. And I think that's the opportunity everyone here has, is you have all of your friends from school and you're learning from each other. Keep those connections. I wish we had Facebook when I went to school. We didn't. So a lot of the connections are, you have to dig and find them on Twitter or whatnot. And I feel like add them now in whatever your social network you're using, and keep your friends, reach out to them. Don't let those relationships die. I feel like there's a lot.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point. And we're going to actually be touching upon networking later. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, how about Amber? What's an inspirational story that you have for us today?
Daniel took a lot of the words right out of my mouth. Going in my Wayback Machine, I did not go to college right out of high school. I didn't think college was for me. I thought college was for doctors and lawyers. My parents didn't go to college. Wasn't a thing I was interested in. And I got to a point in my different career paths and jobs where I couldn't get to the level I wanted without the degree. I needed the degree. And so I decided I could have a really hard couple of years where I'm trying to like go to school and work full time, but then at the end I have that reward, or I could just not do it and give up on moving up ever. I decided to take the harder road, and it was an incredible experience. It was different for me in that all of my fellow students in undergrad were 18, 19, and I was 30. But it changed my life. I found an entirely new career path. I ended up getting my master's. I have gone on to a very successful career in product management, a field I never even knew about. But when I left at undergrad, I started at my first startup. And that taught me about the field of product, which I never even knew about, which really marries business and what I like to do in terms of marketing and changing users' experience and working in tech. And I never would have had any of this if it wasn't for going to Stony Brook. And then to what Daniel said, learning to learn. That's what I learned at Stony Brook. It wasn't about the fact that I took geology or that I took all the business classes or I calculus or whatever. It was about learning how to take something that sounded so hard, like how am I ever going to be able to take this test or solve this problem or write this paper, and dissect it into smaller chunks and figure out how to do that. That's my whole job now. That is product management. I take a really complex problem and I find out how to solve it. And I'd add to that group projects. If I could see all of your faces, I'd ask for a hand raise. I'm sure no one loves a group project. My whole life is group projects. And you have to lead in those projects with influence, not by authority. And I have to convince people to follow me into the fire without forcing them, because I have no authority to do so. And group projects, how you structure that at Stony Brook seems annoying. I know everyone hates them. It really is how it works in companies. You have to cross collaboratively come together. And a lot of that is happening at Stony Brook.
You're right. Thank you so much for sharing, Amber. And I know personally, I know there's a few aspiring project managers here today, so hopefully that advice helps them as well. Okay, how about Laura? What's an inspirational story you have for us today?
So I didn't, here I got my marine science degree in 1997. I didn't start my farm until 2009. I worked as an oceanographer for the federal government, as well as locally for Peconic Estuary Program for years and years. And then after that, nonprofits like the Nature Conservancy. So I think it's really important actually to kind of have all of that experience behind you, because life is this long meandering path. And, you know, it's great that we can do so many different things. So I actually have never taken a business class, but I'm from a whole line of entrepreneurs. And I don't know, I just think that things come in a certain tempo in life, and that you need to just kind of harness it at the right point. And I mean, how wonderful now with the internet, even though I know it's obviously been around for a while, but we can all get to peer-reviewed journal articles for free and just start educating ourselves. So here, my whole career was in marine science, but now I've kind of evolved onto land with native pollinators and farming organic fruit. And I don't feel like I've left anything behind, because all of that makes me who I am today and my thinking today.
Thank you so much, Laura. And Gavin?
So I'll say, so one interesting experience I had at Stony Brook is, so when it came time for my senior design project, I had been working as an engineer at Hewlett-Packard in the medical products group, which is based in Boston. And I was trying to find a way to connect the company to Stony Brook. So I had, as Daniel mentioned, I met a great ton of folks in my program, in the engineering program. We were good friends. And one of them, he decided that we decided together to do our senior project together. So we need to come up with a project. So I went, I had this idea. It'd be a great way to introduce, HP to Stony Brook would be for me to somehow convince them that they should have us essentially do some work that they needed done as part of our senior design project. So I was able to talk my, my summer supervisor into allowing us to present this opportunity to him. So as part of that, he met obviously my the person who did the project with me, but he also met Professor Short, who at the time was running the computer engineering department. So somehow we convinced HP to essentially let us develop some software for one of the quality systems that they were building. So my colleague or my peer at the time, who was doing a project with me, we both got credit for doing the project. I was able to introduce HP to Professor Short and Stony Brook. And the good thing is, once I graduated, actually while I was there, HP also hired a couple of other students, I think from the engineering and the math department as interns. So, I was pretty happy about that somehow we were able to make the connection, industry with academics. So I think that was, kind of like a proud moment from my days at Stony Brook that, I just wanted to share.
Great, thank you so much. And that's great to hear that you had the opportunity to connect industry as a college student. So moving on to the questions. Amber, you have experience in startups such as Movable Inc. and currently at Security Scorecard. What are some positives and drawbacks from working at a startup?
Yeah, I've worked at startups and I've worked at big corporate companies too. So I have feelings about both. I will say I will never go back to a big corporate company again. I love the startup life. It's fast. It used to be hard to have a life and work at a startup. It's not so much anymore unless you're at a really early stage startup. There's often better benefits. There's often higher pay. But there's a risk, right? The company might not be successful. It might fold. And so you have to choose your bets wisely. You have to look for a company that has an inherent virality. That's what I look for in growth. I want to see that that company is going to make it, that there's levers I can pull to get more users and get more money and make sure that company is going to be successful. But yeah, at corporate jobs, there's a lot more stability for sure. They're going to have like a matching 401k, which you absolutely should care about. You're at all of your ages in undergrad, you absolutely need to be investing in your 401ks. And it sounds like something you won't care about, but you will. But the other benefits aren't usually as great. Like you'll have less vacation but you'll have more of a 9 to 5. And so it also varies by job function wildly. So it's hard to compare them necessarily apples to apples, but I like the pace. I think the other thing I like about startups is I don't hear a lot of people saying, that's not my job. People get really excited about a problem and they want to work outside of their core function to work on something new and different. And you can directly see how your work has an impact on the business. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's true. And you also mentioned about risk. And so that was a question I had for everyone. What advice would you give to students about taking a risk?
I'll go and I'll say that I think someone mentioned it previously. Life it's a meandering road. There's, you may have a destination in sight, but there are going to be twists and turns. Because of that, I think that if there is an opportunity to do something that you're very interested in, which may seem a little risky, I would say go ahead and take the plunge, because there's always something that will happen after. It's just the nature of life. So I've never met anyone who's been at a startup or did something crazy like travel to some part of the world that they'd never been, and look back at it and say, gosh, I wish I had never done that. So I would say take risks, especially sooner rather than later, if possible, because when you're younger, you don't have as many responsibilities. And if something doesn't go your way, you just dust yourself off, you get back up and you continue on. So I would say embrace risk, because in reality, there's stability, but then again, you know, especially over the last 2 years, we see how, you know, life can change at a drop of a dime. So I would say, you know, continue to take chances.
I agree. I've learned the most by failing. And I actually give myself probably about 5 to 6 years to really learn about a new species, because you need to give yourself that latitude to learn, right? And for me, entrepreneurship isn't about making money. It's about having intellectual freedom and that like incredible thrill of the kill feeling, right? When you know that your idea is good and that you can make it happen. And, you know, you're only in this skin once. I mean, of course, it's important to be able to feed yourself. You know, we've all been in those situations where you're eating ramen noodles for, you know, weeks at end. But you're in the skin once and you're only young once, and your brain is like key right now, right? Like when you're 95, are you going to start a company? No, you're going to do it now. And I don't know, I'm just kind of happy that we're here. This is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely agree with everything that, you know, Gavin said too. I don't know about the other college students. I guess I'll just put in my input real quick, but I did take a risk in college by changing my major completely from health science to engineering. And it's been one of the best decisions I've made in college so far. And so I'm interested in learning about what your best decision that you've made in college was. So Daniel, Amber, Gavin, Laura, if any of you guys want to start off.
I could go first. I mean, I think, you know, for me, college is expensive, and I was really trying to figure out what would be like the best use of my time. And you know, I loved art, I loved music, but I felt like that was something I could learn on my own because my brain thought that way. So I think one of the biggest challenges for me was really to say, let me do something that's really hard, that would challenge me, and do something that I was like naturally good at. So I took the psychology classes because I was naturally good at those. And then I took the computer science classes because those just were far different than the way that I thought as a person. And I think, you know, getting the best bang for my buck, I was really trying to optimize for that as I started to go, you know, through the getting the degree. I did go through a 2-year college before that. Then Stony Brook I went into as like a, you know, to finalize things. So I was crystallizing, okay, the 2-year college was cheaper. Let me get into this 4-year college and then really figure out what I'm going to do with get the best bang for my buck. But doing the computer science classes, I really appreciated the challenge, very challenging classes that really allowed me to understand that side of things. But look at industry and see what's scaling. Like right now I'm looking at crypto and I'm like, that's a really interesting space. Why? Right? Like that's just one of like, you know, hundreds of different areas that are just kind of like growing. Like look at those spaces that are exciting out in industry and say, where's there an opportunity? I just throw crypto out there as like an example. Maybe it's, you know, vegan hamburgers, whatever it is. Like it could be anything. Like what is a space that's going to grow like long term that you want to get into and learn about, that's like outside of your domain space. So for me, I think that was a big exciting thing, was really just jumping into computer science and like taking those classes, really hard classes. But I don't know if any other panelists have more.
Yeah.
I took an art class and a women's and 2 women's studies classes, and I was really bad at art, but it was actually one of the best classes I took, because your brain, in my opinion, needs time off. And actually, when I go to the symphony or just take a walk, that's when my good ideas come. So, or even having a nice dinner out when I don't even understand how, you know, the items got on the plate. It takes you out of your mind and kind of just makes you look at things from a different perspective. But that's interesting that for you, computer science and getting hardcore into that made your path even stronger.
So I'll add one more thing. So for me, so I was an engineering major, and I had a path when I came to Stony Brook. So I was, kind of very focused, and I first year I guess I lived in the freshman dorms, Langmuir, I believe it was, and then my second year I lived in Roth, and I had three suite mates. One was in, I think he was in the medical program, a pre-med program. The other two, I think, were sociology majors. And, I was so focused, and, they were always seemed to be having a good time. And then I don't know what drove this, but my roommate was like, hey, man, why don't you, kind of put the books aside and let's go hang out. And it was good for me because it started to make me a bit more social. And at the time, right, as an engineer, like so focused on getting good grades so I can then get the job and do A, B, and C later, it didn't occur to me how important making connections, being able to have a network and understand people. I was so focused, laser focused, that part, just it wasn't something that I paid attention to. But simply by having three roommates who were more outgoing than I was, forced me to a certain extent to start to be more social, which I can say to this day has aided me tremendously in my career. Whether you're pitching for money, if you're starting a company, whatever job you're in, at some point you're going to have to network, you're going to have to influence people, you're going to have to present. And those are all social skills. They're not necessarily academic. So I would say the best thing I did was kind of get out of my own way and, start engaging with the people around me. And also I would say some of my best friends today are people that I've met during college. I'm godfather to one of their kids. We went to all each other's weddings. So I would say, especially at this time in your life, just take a chance, like really appreciate the people around you, build those connections for fun, but also I can guarantee you that in the future, there'll be people that you'll be doing business with.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up all those great points. I think especially in industry or wherever you're working, work-life balance is definitely very important to look at, as well as having the communication skills, because even in engineering, there is a lot of communication going on, as you said, whether it be for pitches or presentations. So that kind of leads me to my next question. Amber, what are some valuable skills that college students should have when they're becoming a young professional?
1,000% presenting. I present all day, every day, and especially a lot of companies are remote. My company is a remote first company, even though we have an office in New York City. Presenting, you're on Zoom all day long with different people. Presenting is how you get your ideas across. So being able not just to put a PowerPoint together or Google Slides presentation together, but to storytell, to explain. There's a format for presenting, like tell me what you're going to tell me that thing, tell me what you told me. To be able to tell a story, to be able to get people to follow you, to listen to you, to stay engaged, like that is a skill. And a lot of people don't have it. And I know that the business department does a lot of it. Take it seriously, because it really will serve you well. You sound silly to practice, but you have to practice. That's a huge skill. And the other thing I would say is data analysis. That's a really good skill in any function, to be able to understand how work you do impacts a metric. So I've worked in marketing, I've worked in product, I've worked in account management. It's all about how much money am I bringing in the company? How much money is the thing I'm doing impacting the company? Because on your resume, when I interview a lot of people, I don't want to see a list of things that you did that were part of your job description. I wanted to see the impact you had in that position. I wanted to see that you increased efficiency by 2x, that you increased revenue by X%. Being able to understand how to find that data, how to analyze it, how to get a result out of it, and whether or not you positively or negatively impacted the result is crucial, not just for your resume, but your performance reviews. Everyone wants to get paid more money. In the traditional startup or corporate business world, that is super important, and a skill that a lot of people lack.
Yeah, that's completely true. Laura, would you like to add on? Oh, you're muted, by the way.
I just kind of think of things just a little differently. I mean, I know money is important, but and you know, multiples of things and everything else, but it's the ideas and working together and trying to figure out climate change and all this stuff. I just yeah, I guess I don't have anything exactly really tight to say, but just with everything going on, I just feel like money is like the third priority, but important.
Okay. I also just wanted to circle back to something that you said, Amber, about failing. So when was a time that a failure has helped with your success? And this to me is pretty near and dear to my heart because one of iCreate's missions is to create an environment where it's okay to fail. And it's something that we try to tell our members when they're using our facilities. And so I just wanted to see how that plays out in the real world as well.
Yeah, I fail all the time. It's how you learn, right? It's how you get better. It's how you improve. And I think as women, and especially it's even more so if you're a woman of color, it's even harder to feel like it's okay to fail. You feel like you have to work twice as hard. I think failing is really important because it shows that you are humble, that you understand something didn't work. The key aspect is if you fail, it's one, not hiding that failure, being really clear and vocal that, hey, I tried this thing, it didn't work. And not just period and move on, but it didn't work. Here's what I learned from it. Here's what I'm going to do next. Again, it kind of goes back to storytelling. So my company says it a lot. My co-founders are hugely big advocates of failing in the open, we call it. So being, again, really vocal about I'm going to try this thing and it might not work. And then it didn't work. I know personally, I remember when I was in email marketing, I sent an email to hundreds of thousands of people with the wrong offer in it for the wrong product. It was a gigantic mistake and one that I love to like drag companies for on Twitter when they do it, because it's important to call out that you messed it up and build that trust back with your users. And I had to go to my boss and be like, I totally screwed this up. We're going to lose this money now because emails do make a lot of money. And it was just like, cool, just send another email and fix it and move it back. And now you know never to do that thing again. So whether it's a big fail or a small fail, it's just about taking accountability for that and then figuring out how you can learn from it and move on and go try the next thing.
Yeah, thank you. Would any of the other panelists like to add on?
So I have so there was one instance where I was working for a telehealth company, and I was responsible for taking the product to market, right? So commercializing our product is very, early days for telehealth. So I had a potential customer, and we were a small company. So if we got this customer, it was going to be a big deal. So I made the mistake of, telling my boss, who was the CEO, who made the mistake of telling investors and our board. So as we got further, closer to closing, we had a meeting with the potential customer, and I'm excited, get the paper signed, and we're all going to celebrate. The CEO of the organization turns around and says, we want to use your product, but we would like you to donate it. Right. So this is healthcare, and this happens quite a bit in healthcare for bigger companies. They donate their technology or product, and they usually get, the company that's getting the product, they're able to use it, but then they usually go on to a bigger project down the road, and that's when they actually buy. I was not well versed in this process. So when the CEO turns around, my CEO sitting next to me and says, we would like you to donate it. I mean, I'm brown, but if I wasn't, I would have turned red, right? I was so shocked and quite embarrassed, but it was a learning experience, right? So the learning experience there is make sure you understand how the process actually works, right? But in that case, it wasn't clear to me that that's how the process would work for this potential customer. But I made sure that for every other customer that I did approach, that I knew that there were dollars at the end of the line. And I also made sure that I managed the messaging with both my CEO and obviously, coached him on how to interact with the board with respect to, sales of the product. But it was quite humbling.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm glad that, after a failure, you learn from it. And so hopefully it doesn't happen again later down the road. Just shifting gears a little bit because you did mention healthcare. So Daniel, you are the co-founder and the former co-president of Dr. Chrono, which to my understanding is connecting health and technology. So do you mind just sharing a little bit more about Dr. Chrono and about what your personal mission is?
Sure. Dr. Chrono was like in its inception was to digitize medical records for all medical professionals across the United States and the world. And the goal was to get them all to use iPhones, iPads, laptops. And I'm dating myself a little bit, but doctors really didn't want to use any of that stuff. And they just wanted to, use paper. And, you ask yourself why. It's because the technology honestly got in the way of what the doctor wanted to do. Like, sometimes writing something down is faster than typing it or using a piece of software. So our goal was to get that data as the patient is in the room with the doctor into some device as fast as possible, and then take care of the doctor and the patient by, administering the right medication, getting the right lab, getting the doctor paid. So it's really the operating system for a medical practice. And I think, my own mission, in building that company was really doing good and doing something meaningful for a long, like if you do something long enough for a long enough timeline, you are going to make an impact. And it could be anything. And I think for me, my mission was to really impact the medical space for, put in a decade per life experience. And that was like one of those, for me, it was like a 14-year period of focusing on healthcare and really making an impact there. And, I think we made, significant inroads. And I think one of the highlights for me was really, the White House invited us to the White House to talk to President Obama at the time. And he was talking about digitizing medical records and how do you do more precise medicine, meaning like if someone has like a specific disease or whatnot, some ailment, you could like make medicine precise for that doctor. And for me, being in the White House next to President Obama was awesome. I mean, I was like, how did I get here? How did we get to this point? Because I was just some student from Stony Brook who just, worked on an idea. But that's, yeah. Anyway, that's, I think answering the question.
Yeah, that's definitely really cool. I don't think a lot of people can say that they've been to the White House to talk about their idea. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for that. Laura, what about you? So what do you devote most of your time in a day to, and what do you try to accomplish every day to reach your long-term goal?
Geez, I'm sure you guys are this way too, where you fall asleep on the couch at 9:30, you wake up at midnight, you're like energized again. And then like for 2 hours, you're thinking of that next new idea, right? And then all of a sudden it's 2 a.m. But it's important to have imagination time. And then what I find is I wake up and I have like all these fabulous ideas, or so they seem fabulous at the time. And then it's important to have those people in your life that you can bounce ideas off of, right? Or even people you don't know, and you can just read their faces, right? So for the longest time, I couldn't get pollination of moths out of my head, because moths, even though they're nocturnal, they actually pollinate blueberries and apples really well. So they're important for agriculture. I couldn't get it out of my head. So I started talking about it with people to see if maybe it might gain traction with the general public. But what I found was people's eyes were glazing over like donuts, right? But at least I could notice this. And then I realized, wow, it's important for me, but not for so many other people. So now I tackle nocturnal pollinators by chairing the North Fork Dark Sky Coalition, because most people seem to care about seeing the Milky Way, right? So they want to turn their lights off or take those blue horrible LED bulbs and put the yellow amber ones in. So it's really bouncing ideas off people, which I like to do pretty much every day because it keeps me grounded, and then figuring out how I can align with other people to get what I want done. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I also just want to go back to what Gavin was talking about before with building a network. And Laura, and I think in this case also, you are building a network because you're getting people to support your mission as well. And so I can start off with Amber. So how have you built your network in your personal experience, whether it be in person or with networking sites such as LinkedIn?
Yeah, before I ended up going back to going to Stony Brook to start my undergrad, I was looking to try to see about different career paths in marketing. And someone gave me advice, and it was really hard to do, but I did it anyway. And I just sent a lot of random emails to people in fields that sounded cool and was like, hey, would you have coffee with me for 15 minutes? I just want to pick your brain. And I met a lot of really interesting people that way, through a whole lot more people that said no or ghosted me. That was one way to build it. And then additionally, just like every person I tended to interact with, either at Stony Brook, professors, in different companies, when I deal with clients, all of that, I just start to add them to my LinkedIn. I stay in contact. It's a good way to periodically pick someone's brain, as Laura said, and just like bounce ideas off of someone, even if they're not directly working with your company or your product. It's just it's kind of tit for tat. They do it for you, you do it for them type of thing. And it comes in handy all the time. Like just today, I was brainstorming with a couple of people on a new idea that we have. And we were like, oh, do we know anyone that works at these companies? And I just quickly went to my LinkedIn and was like, yes, I know a bunch of people at Amex, PayPal, Uber, Apple. I was like, let me contact these people and see if they can get us this other person. It just comes in handy. LinkedIn is really powerful. So when you go to events like this, I would just immediately connect with everyone on LinkedIn and periodically be like, hey, can I just pick your brain for 15 minutes? That stuff works.
I'm fortunate that I share store space with the winery, Coffee Pot Cellars. And so, it's not always busy there. So I have some downtime to do other things as well. But meeting people face to face is something that I still hold really dear. I mean, here, this is wonderful that we're all talking from our own houses and offices. But at the same time, seeing somebody in person and you see those small little changes in their aura or how they're moving their hands or they shift their feet. And then you can learn so much more about them and come to a tighter conclusion on things. And so I think it's great, Amber, that you have coffee with people because LinkedIn and social media, it just doesn't have that same effect as meeting people in person. And so I found that I've sold so much more jam and bees. Oh, my mom is calling. So it sold so many more bees by meeting people in person and then talking about native pollinators.
Yeah, that's a great point too. I personally really enjoy talking to people in person as well. But I know LinkedIn is a very good tool to have, especially for, just keeping in touch with past mentors. And so one of my questions also kind of relates to this remote in-person work-life balance. So Gavin, how has the pandemic changed your outlook on work or life? Did you have any change in priorities? And did you have anything new that you learned during the pandemic about yourself?
So interesting enough, the pandemic created an opportunity for a business for me. So when it started, my wife, who manages a team of marketeers, around 35 marketeers for Colgate-Palmolive, and my wife's an extrovert, right? So she gets up in the morning, she's up at 5 or 6 in the morning, she has her coffee, she works out, and she's go, go, go. I'm not a morning person. Neither is my daughter. So the pandemic was interesting because you would have one person that's up, and then there are the other two. But anyway, because of the pandemic, my wife said, hey, I'm really missing my team. I don't get to interact with them a lot, and I'm looking to do kind of things that are a bit more not necessarily formal. We're on Zoom meetings all day. So myself and another partner, we decided to create Virtual Water Cooler. And the whole idea is, even before this, we saw that technology started to connect people across time zones, and people were already working, let's say 10% of hours. Fridays, a lot of people, work from home. So we expected that the pandemic would exacerbate this trend. So we went ahead, started the company. We're able to get, some clients, companies such as Allstate, who were moving a lot of their claims people to work from home because it was just more efficient. So in a strange way, it created a business opportunity, but I would say that it fast-tracked an opportunity that was actually happening, especially at certain types of companies. So that was, kind of like the big impact on the pandemic. The other thing though, and I'll say this, I have a 13-year-old daughter, and my wife and I still debate, these types of technologies when it comes to education for younger kids. Simply because I think, as Laura was mentioning, I do believe that socialization is a big deal. When you're still kind of forming, you're learning how to be you. So during the pandemic, it was interesting to kind of see, how my daughter adapted. But I will say that these types of technologies, I think they still have a little bit of ways to go to be impactful for education at a younger age. That's one of the things that I noticed.
Yeah, that's a great point. Would anyone else like to add on?
I'll add one thing the pandemic taught me was I was commuting every day into New York City from Long Island at the time. And it was like an hour and a half each way. And then after work, I have client meetings, or people want to go out for drinks or whatever. And I traveled all the time for work. Pandemic taught me I hated commuting and how much time I was away from my wife. And being able to have us both work from home was really nice because we got to have dinner together, and we would go on midday walks, and we would have espresso afternoons. And I just realized how much time I had lost. And so that really showed me that was more important, and made me realize when people started going back into the office that I didn't want that. And I did make a change and went to Security Scorecard, which is a remote friendly company, so that I could be remote forever, but occasionally get together with people. So I think Gavin might have mentioned this. You are working with people across different time zones. Most of my engineers are in Prague, and I am lucky enough to go visit them next week, that we all get together in person for a week of team building and bonding. So you have to still make time for that, but you don't have to commute every single day anymore. And that's the biggest shift, I think, in work culture that's going to benefit long-term a lot of people.
Thank you. So we are coming up to the top of the hour now, but I just have one final question. So how important is mentorship? And do you or did you have a mentor who has inspired you? And I'll just open up the floor so that anyone can answer. Dave, would you like to talk about it?
I could go first. I think, there were a couple of mentors at Stony Brook that started companies, and they just helped advise me. And, I could give you one Stony Brook alumni who I've never spoken to, but I always was impressed that they did it and they built a company. Never spoke to them, but I just saw the company. It's a company called Shutterstock. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it or not, but it's a public company, Stony Brook alumni. And I just see those people and I'm like, if they could do it, I could do it. And, I live near Stanford now, at Stanford University. The president of Stanford University went to Stony Brook. I don't know if you guys know that. So the person leading Stanford University, one of the best schools in the world, was a Stony Brook PhD. That is inspiration to me. And I think there's the tactical people that would give me advice daily. I met the founder of Reddit. He gave me advice over a few years, and several other people, like the founder of Gmail. I met him. I'm like, this guy's amazing. But then there's the people from Stony Brook that have like done such amazing things. And, I think that the guy that was running Stanford University, he's just a really smart guy. And I'm like, how do they do that? And I think those are like the people that are, you get all these people around you, these advisors, and build that network of advisors, and some will intimidate you and others will just like spend hours with you and, just try to figure out who works with you to give you that advice.
Mhm. Yeah, that's definitely true. Having a mentor has helped so much, and especially just quick shout out to Dave, who's been a great mentor for all these years. So thanks, Dave. And now I'd just like to open up the floor for any questions from the audience. So please put it in the chat if you do have any questions. Thank you so much again for all the panelists for answering and sharing so much. In the meantime, if you could share the second part of the presentation, Dave. I just want to also let you all know about the upcoming Entrepreneurs Edge speaker series on April 6th. And so you could scan that QR code on the left if you want to learn more about it. And also be on the lookout for the next WolfieTank, which is Stony Brook's very own pitch competition, which is similar to the show Shark Tank. And so you could scan the QR code on the right if you want to learn more about it and see some previous submissions. All right. So if you have any questions, again, feel free to put it in the chat. And if the panelists, if you guys have any questions for each other, feel free to shout them out as well.
One thing that I found, though, is coming up with a good idea is one thing, but then selling it is a whole different animal. And so from my experience, I realized that, doing good things for your community, sharing your knowledge with others, and then winning awards based on what you've created will help you strengthen and move forward your business. So even during the pandemic, we had really strong sales, and I was so grateful. But really, I think because we give so much back as well. So karma helped us out. But we all know people that have had great ideas, but then making it to that next step, that just sometimes seems to be such the challenge. But you could do it.
That's for sure. I think definitely people have the idea and the vision, but you also need the steps to actually implement it. And so one of my biggest takeaways is, mentorship is just super invaluable, as well as building your network and building onto your skills. And so we have a couple of questions that just came in. So Alexis asked, what would you classify as the most defining leadership behavior? So Gavin, would you like to start?
So over my career, I've noticed that the organizations that I've been at have done extremely well when the management team lets employees do what they do best. And if you break down any company, regardless of what the product or service is, it all comes down to people. So I would say that getting the most out of people is probably one of the most important things that's an indicator of success for a company. I think a lot of companies make mistakes where they may hire individuals and then they put them in a box, essentially not letting them do what they were hired to do. And I think it's a big mistake. So I would say how companies utilize their people is probably extremely important.
Yeah, that's completely true. I believe that, it should be a people first company culture. So I think that's
Absolutely.
and I think that's what I like in terms of management. I feel like if the manager is more willing to get to know me and being more personal, then I feel more motivated to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Didia asked, was there a unique idea that helped you find what your career was based on? So would anyone like to start with that?
I'll grab that. I don't know that it wasn't an idea, but something that kind of resonated with me, and some advice I give to people that are unsure if they're fit for a product, are what kind of games do you like to play? I realized that I kind of did a lot of soul searching about what did I like, what got me excited, what got me passionate and like fired up. And it was anything involving strategy. So I have a theory that like people who like to play quest-based type of video games where you have limited resources and you have to solve problems would be great at product management. And just distilling like what got me excited was taking these complex things and breaking them down into parts, and then seeing when you solved it or when you made progress, like seeing someone light up at this new way of thinking. That was what kind of sold me into product management. And once I understand that's really what it's about, I realized that was kind of my path. And from the second I got in, I knew it was the right choice.
Thank you. And we have time for just one more question. So what advice would you give to an introvert to gain courage to talk to people and be more outgoing?
Whenever I give talks or even present a new idea, I make sure that the science is behind me. So I am standing on the shoulders of all the scientists that came before me and all of their ideas and bringing it all together. So I feel strong because they're all behind me, right? So whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, it doesn't matter because you're there and you're standing on these great ideas.
Yeah, that's a great point. So thank you so much again. We are coming up to a close right now, so I'd like to wrap up today's session. And it was great hearing from each of the panelists, and I've definitely learned a lot more today, and especially grateful for this opportunity because I'm, like, as a college student, I am interested in making a startup in the near future. So I've been inspired by this panel, and thank you so much again. So Gavin, Amber, Daniel, Laura, thank you again for sharing your experiences and for giving advice to all of us. Thank you, Dave, for running this event smoothly, and Arlene for coordinating the event. And thank you again to the College of Business, Engineering, and Applied Sciences, iCreate, and the Alumni Association. So thank you all for coming out today, and I hope you've been inspired as well. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email sbuicreate@stonybrook.edu. And I don't know if the panelists are open to it, but if you guys want to connect with them on LinkedIn or find them on their website, Laura, I believe your website's blossommeadow.com. Yep, yeah, feel free to utilize your resources as we talked about today. So have a great evening, everyone. Hope to see you soon at the next events. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.